Good afternoon. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about concentric spring. In today's lecture, we'll see uh, helical spring subjected to fatigue loading. Okay, because of the fatigue loading, the member will be subjected for fluctuating stresses, which is shown in the figure. You can see that the figure which you are seeing on the screen here, the member is subjected for fluctuating stresses. Here you can see that we'll get the maximum stress. This is the sigma max is nothing but maximum stress induced. On the x-axis you can see the time. With respect to time, the stresses which you can observe on a material when it's subjected for fatigue loading. Okay. And this is the mean stress, and this is the minimum stress. Sigma mean is nothing but minimum stress observed in a member, and sigma a is amplitude stress, and this is mean stress. Before we start with the fatigue loading, you should understand what do you mean by fatigue loading. Fatigue is nothing but it is the initiation of the what you call that crack or small void which will elongate, or when it is subjected for loading it will grow. Fatigue is nothing but it is the initiation of the crack, and when the loading is done, that crack will propagates. That propagation of crack into the material, when it is subjected for cyclic loading, that is called as fatigue. And whatever the cyclic load which the member has undergone is called as fatigue loading. And you have observed this fatigue loading. For example, if you want to take example of a aeroplane, okay, when the aeroplane takes off, okay, for the flight, the member will be subjected for cyclic loading. Okay, we don't know how many flights the aeroplane has undergone. Okay, as a result of that, it will be subjected for cyclic loading, and the crack will be initiated. Okay, initially it will be small, and when it is subjected for cyclic loading, that will propagate, and finally the member will break into two pieces. Okay, and one more example is whatever you are done in your material testing lab. Okay, in that material testing lab, for example, if this is the member, okay, when it is subjected for different types of loading, here the member is subjected for tensile loading. Okay, initially when you apply the load, the material will resist. Okay, resistance offered by the body against the deformation. When you apply the load, the material will try to resist that deformation. Okay, that is up to the elastic limit. Okay, once the whatever the loading is there, it is beyond elastic limit, then you will observe a deformation. That is, the member will enter into a plastic stage. Okay, plastic is nothing but once the loading is done, after the removal of the load, the member will not regain its original shape and size. Whereas in elastic loading, when you apply the load, okay, the member will elongate. When you remove the load, it will regain its original shape and size. Okay, now the member has undergone plastic deformation, means you can observe the deformation. Okay, further increase in the load. Okay, there you might what you call that get a crack. Okay, a small crack you can observe before this the neck formation takes place in the member. For example, if this is the member, when it is subjected for tensile, when it is subjected for tensile loading, this is the initial member. Okay. When it is subjected for, initially you can observe this type of neck formation in the specimen. Okay, and further loading up to the maximum stress, here initially you will see the crack. Okay, and once the further loading is done, the crack will propagate. Okay, and for example, if the crack is like this, okay, initially a small dot will be there, further loading, the crack will initiate, and after that it will propagate, and ultimately the member will break into two pieces. Here the member will break into two pieces, and you are going to observe a cup and cone in the specimen. This will be cup, sorry, this is cone, and you're going to observe a cup on this. Means here the specimen is going to break into two pieces. Okay, when it is subjected for cyclic loading. Okay. Similarly, here we are going to see the helical spring which is subjected for fatigue loading. Okay, and to find out that in the fatigue loading, you are going to get the maximum load and the minimum load. Between that, the fluctuations will be there. Okay, that maximum and minimum load will be given. From that, you are going to find out the mean force which will be acting on the member. And similarly, you will be calculating the amplitude force. Okay, F max minus F nu by 2. These equations are there in the spring chapter 11.16 F and G. And already you have solved problem on this, that is fluctuating stresses in your design of machine element 1. Okay, and these formulas are also there in that chapter 2. In data handbook chapter 2, there you will get these two formulas. After that, to find out the shear stress induced in the member, we will be using the same equation, that is 11.1D. And here we'll be considering the Soderberg equation. Okay, in this case, you need to consider the Soderberg equation, and this is there in the chapter 2, 2.19E. Okay, this is the amplitude shear stress, mean shear stress, and this is the yield shear stress. Okay, and this is the endurance limit, and N is the factor of safety. Okay, all this shear stress will be calculated, and after substituting that, you are going to get the required values. This is about the theory part of this fatigue load. Okay, once I'm going to solve the problem on this, you will understand it clearly. Okay, I will take a problem on this. Okay, this is the problem. Here, design a helical spring to sustain axial load to sustain axial load that fluctuates between, means it is going to fluctuate between 1.5 kilonewton and 2 kilonewton. Means in this, the maximum load F max is 2 kilonewton, 2 into 10 raised to 3, and the minimum is 1.5 into 10 raised to 3 Newton with associated deflection of deflection. Associated deflection means deflection observed in that is 15 mm during fluctuating load. During the fluctuating load, whatever the deflection which you are going to observe in that spring is 15 mm, means he has given the value of y. Okay. To solve this problem, you should know the endurance limit of that value, endurance limit for that particular material. Similarly, what is the yield shear stress and modulus of rigidity? All these data are not given. Okay, if the type of material is given, you can take that material and from the properties of the material. Okay, from that table you can write down that. Okay, whereas in this case they are not given the material. Okay, for that reason I need to assume the type of material. Okay, here I am going to assume the helical spring as a SAE 1091, which is annealed and oil quenched. Thus, the material which I am going to assume is a SAE 1095 annealed and oil quenched. And for this material, in your data handbook, table number 1.18, where you will get the properties of all the materials. Okay, in table 1.18, page number 473 in the Bulvirity data handbook, you will get that table. Okay, in that table you need to note down the sigma en values. Okay, if you are having the data handbook with you, you just open that data handbook, page number 473. Okay, I opened that data handbook 473. Okay, in that you can see that the first column material is given. Okay, the material which I have selected is, it is SA 1097 and a lead oil quenched. That is the last one. In that, the first column is ultimate strength, which is not required for that, for us. Next one is a yield stress. In that you can see that fifth column. Okay, shear yield stress is there. Okay, from that fifth column I have taken this 520 megapascal. In that you can see that they have written mega Newton per meter square. Newton per meter square is nothing but Pascal. Okay, the given value is 520. Okay, it is in the range of 270 to 520. In that you can select. Okay, we'll design it for the worst condition, that is I will take 520. Similarly, the next one, sixth column, is the endurance limit. Okay, that we'll call it as a sigma en, endurance limit. Okay, it is also in megapascal or Newton per mm square, and that value is 690. After that, in the ninth column, there you will get the modulus of G value, that is 79.4 gigapascal, 79.4 gigapascal, and these both endurance limit as well as yield shear stress are in megapascal. Convert this into megapascal. 1 gigapascal is equal to 10 raised to 3 megapascal, or giga is nothing but 10 raised to 9, mega is 10 raised to 6. Okay, convert that into megapascal. After that, you need to substitute the, if you see the previous one, in this endurance, that is endurance limit of that is shear stress, tau en is there. Okay, that value need to be substituted. Okay, you cannot use sigma en. Okay, for that reason, tau en is equal to, that is it is in the range of 0.5 to 0.6 times the sigma n. It is there in your data book 2.15a. This 2 indicates chapter 2 in bulbarity. Okay, in that equation, what I will do, in between that you can take 0.5 to 0.6. I will consider zero point 0.5. Some I think one student has asked me, Shankar, whether I can take minimum. Okay, when you are designing any of the component, okay, you should design for the worst situation. For example, if you take the tractor, okay, if you check the design of a what you call a trailer, okay, in that the maximum capacity is of that will be 5 ton. Okay, but if you see whatever the sugar cane it is carrying, it will be almost like 15 to 20 ton. Okay, but actual as per the design, the capacity of that is 5. Okay, means whatever the designing is done, it will be done for the worst situation. Similarly, your two wheeler or four-wheeler, you can see that as per the company regulations or the norms, if they mention that is 4 plus 1, okay, 4 passenger plus driver, 5 sitting capacity, but some of the cases you can see that more than 5 people will be sitting. Okay, but as per their that has to fail, means whatever the car is there, okay, it has to break, but they will be designing it for worst, means they will keep in mind that 7 or 8 passengers are going to sit, and they will consider the extra load what the car is carrying. Okay, for that reason, always you should design it for the worst situation. I think Shankar, your doubt is clarified. For that reason, I have taken the maximum values. Now substitute that, you will get the value. It will be 345 megapascal. Similarly, both this formula you need to take it from 11.16 F and G. You need to find out the mean load and amplitude load. F max plus F minimum, maximum and minimum value is given. Substitute that. From that, you are going to get the mean load and amplitude load. Okay, either you can take it from 11.16 FG equation, or it is there in your second chapter, that is page number 24. After that, next is Soderberg equation. Okay, I'm going to take this equation 2.19e. Okay, in this tau en, tau y is calculated. Okay, whereas tau a and tau m, that is mean shear stress and amplitude shear stress, you need to calculate that. Okay, to calculate that, I will be using 11.1d equation. Okay, to calculate the amplitude shear stress, you have to substitute amplitude load, then you will get the amplitude shear stress. If you want to calculate mean shear stress, here you have to take the mean load. Okay, that is the difference. Whatever 11.1d equation is there, that you have to take. Wherever F is there, if you are calculating amplitude shear stress, substitute as FA. If you are calculating tau m, that is mean shear stress, you have to substitute mean load. Okay, and in this case, if you see, I'm going to find out amplitude shear stress. Okay, tau a. After that, I will calculate the mean shear stress. In the given problem, they have not given the mean diameter of the spring and diameter of the spring wire. That is important. If that value is not given, what I will do, I will assume the spring index, that is C value, is also not given. Either they have to give C value. If C value is given, you can calculate the D value, that is mean diameter or diameter of the wire. In this case, they are not given the spring index value, not nor the mean diameter or diameter of the wire. Okay. For that reason, I will assume spring index value as 6. Therefore, assume C is equal to 6 if it is not given. Okay, as we know that spring index is nothing but it is the ratio of mean diameter to the diameter of the wire. I assumed it as 6. Similarly, in this equation, K is also unknown. Okay, from 11.2a, that is Wahl's stress factor. This is the formula. Substitute the value of C, you will get the K. K will be 1.2525. Okay, therefore D is nothing but you take this term to the right hand side. Therefore D will be 6 into small d. Substitute that 6 into small d. Here we are calculating amplitude force. Okay, we are calculated it as 250. Substitute that. Small d, that is diameter of the wire, is not given. Keep it like that only. That value we are going to find out. Okay, from this equation, two unknowns are there. Okay, call this as equation 1. Okay, now in the next step, find out the mean shear stress. Therefore, mean shear stress is equal to, as I told you, when you are finding mean shear stress. Okay, when you are finding the mean shear stress, take down the mean load. Okay, mean load, it is 1750. Take the value. Capital D is 6 into D. K value 1.2525. D is unknown. Okay, from this you will get the second equation. Once you get the mean shear stress, in this equation two unknowns are there. Okay, now in Soderberg equation, substitute the value of amplitude shear stress and mean shear stress. You know the mean shear stress in equation 2, amplitude shear stress in equation 1. Substitute both the values in Soderberg equation, that is 2.19 equation. After substituting that, and factor of safety is not given. Okay, in this case I assume it as 2. If factor of safety is given, whatever the value is given, you take that. Otherwise, assume it as 2. From that, I'm going to get the value of D. After solving this equation, you will get the value of D. But we need to consider the standard diameter. Okay, the standard diameter, to calculate that, you need to refer the table 11.2. It is there in the data handbook, page number 188. Okay, if I'm having, I will show that. 1 second. Yeah. Yes, this is page number 188, table number 11.2, that is standard dimension of the wire. Here you will be taking the condition we assumed as cold drawn wire unalloyed. In this you can see that the value which we obtained is 12.512. Okay, here you can see that it is 6.5 to 11. Next is standard one is 12. After that 12.50, but our value is 12.51. Means you cannot select the lesser value. The immediate next value is 13. You can select the diameter as 13. Okay, in between that 13.1, if you get, okay, whatever the increment is there, it is 1. Means next value you can take it as 14. Or if it is in between 14 and 15, like 14.5, you can select it as 15. Now our value is 12.51, means I can take it as 13. Therefore, the standard diameter will be D is equal to 13 mm. Okay, once you find out the diameter, okay, next step is the designing of the what you call that, spring. Next step is the procedure is same as that of the previous problem. That is whether it is a circular or non-circular cross-sectional helical spring. In that, first you need to calculate the mean diameter from this formula. Mean diameter D is equal to C into D. C here assumed as 6 into D. D value just now you have calculated is 13. 6 into 13, 78. And the outer diameter D naught is equal to capital D plus small d. If I am having that figure, I can show. Yes, from here, okay, from yes, from this point. Sorry, it should be from here. Yes, from here to here. Okay, this will give the outer diameter. Okay, from here to up to here, if you measure that, you will get the inner diameter. Means to get this outer diameter, you need to add. This is the diameter, mean diameter plus diameter of the wire. If you add that, then you will get the outer diameter. To get the inner diameter from here to here, mean diameter minus the diameter of the wire, you will get the inner diameter. Okay. Here you can see that D plus D. Okay, this capital D, it is 78 plus 13, it is 91. Inner diameter is capital D minus, that is mean diameter of the coil minus diameter of the wire. 78 minus 13 is 65. After that, now you need to take down or calculate the active number of coils. For this, the formula is that is equation 11.5a, and in the given problem, they are given the deflection, associated deflection of 15 mm. Deflection y is given, this 15. Load, okay. The previous problem, it was subjected for axial load, whereas in this case, it is subjected for fluctuating load. Okay, when fluctuating load is there, you need to take the difference of that. F2 minus F1, that is 2 minus 1.5 into 10 raised to 3, you will get as 0.5 into 10 raised to 3. Substitute that. Capital D is calculated 78. I, you need to calculate that. Small d is calculated as 13. G, we have taken it from the data and book properties of material. Substitute that value. From this, you will calculate the value of I. It is 17.92. You cannot take decimal values, number of turns. For that reason, I will take the next higher number, 18. This is active number of coil. Okay. After that, here one more is missing, that is total number of coil. Total number of coil is nothing but I is equal to, we will call it as I dash. It is I plus 2. Why? Because here we are assumed square and grounded. For square and grounded, total number of coils will be I plus 2. This is the dead end. 2 coils, dead end is there. I is 18. 18 plus 2. Therefore, total number of coils will be equal to 20. Okay. Total of number of coils will be equal to 20. After that, I need to calculate free length of the spring. To calculate the free length of the spring, okay, in the given problem, they need to mention the end condition. Okay, in this case, the end condition is not mentioned. When the end condition is not mentioned, you need to assume that. Okay, total 4 end conditions are there. In that, you can assume any one. In the previous problems also, we assumed square and grounded. That's why I have taken square and grounded. After assuming that,
Sir,
how you are going to come to know that it is a circular and non-circular? Okay, in this case, it is a circular one. Okay, whatever the fluctuating load is there. If they mention height and width. In the problem, if they mention the dimensions of the spring, instead of diameter of the wire, if they mention diameter means it is circular only. Okay, for circular helical spring only we'll get the D value. If they mention height and width, then this is a non-circular. If they mention height and width, it is a rectangular one. And one more is there, that is square. If the height and width both are same, then we'll call it as square. Otherwise, you can see the previous one. Yes, here you can see that this is the D. Why? Because it is having circular section, that is the diameter. It is a circular helical spring. And one more is there, that is, yes, here you can see that two types are there. One is rectangular one, other one is a square one. Here you can see the H value. Okay, this is the H height and this is width B. If height is greater than the width, then it will be a rectangular, what do you call that? A rectangular cross sectional. Okay, if the height and width both are same, then it is a square cross sectional spring. Like that you can identify the different cross section. I hope your doubt is clarified, whether it is circular or rectangular. Now you will be able to identify that whether it is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
now the end condition are assumed it as square and ground end. From the table you will get the free length formula. Okay, in the table I have shown that in the previous lecture. Okay, you refer that. And to calculate this A value, two formulas are there. One is A is equal to dxi. That formula you can use. I have solved a problem using that formula. And one more is 25% of the maximum deflection. Okay, 25% is, you can take it as 25 divided by 100 or 0.25 into maximum deflection is nothing but y. They are given it as 50. That is the maximum deflection into 50. Therefore, A value will get as 3.75. Substitute that in this equation. Y is 15, A is 3.75, diameter is 13. Okay, I value is 18. Don't take I dash. I dash is total number of coil, whereas I is active number of coil. You have to substitute active number of coil. From this, you will get the free length of the spring. This is the free length of the spring. Once you get the free length of the spring, next is the stiffness of the spring. Okay, use the equation 11.7a. It is the ratio of load divided by the deflection which is observed in the spring. Load is difference, that is F2 minus F1 for the fluctuating load. Otherwise you can take it, you have to take it as F divided by Y. Deflection, it is given. Substitute that value. From that you will get the stiffness of the spring. After calculating that, next pitch formula, you have to take it from table number 11.4, page number 189. Okay, if you are not seen that, I will show it, but you should be familiar with the data and book, otherwise it will be difficult. Yes, here you can see that this is the 11.4 different types of spring. These are the four end conditions. In this case, I assume this square and ground end. Here you can see that it is a square and ground end. In this case, the free length formula I have taken I plus 2d 1 plus plus y plus a. From this I calculated the free length L0. Now you can see that pitch P, it is in mm. This is also in mm. Pitch is equal to L0 minus 2d by I. L0 is free length. You have calculated just now. Substitute that value. Diameter is calculated as 13. Substitute that. I, it is calculated as 18. Substitute that. From this you will get the pitch as 14.04 mm. This is how you need to solve the problem on fluctuating load or fluctuating stresses. The procedure is same, only the starting difference is there. Here you will be having the member will be subjected for amplitude stress and mean stress. Okay, for that because of the mean load and amplitude load, first you need to calculate these things. Okay, from this you're going to find out the diameter. After that, whatever the procedure is there, it is same as that of the previous problem. Thank you. I will end the meeting.